What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 430 of Get Paid for Your Pad. And today we are going to talk about how to attract midterm stays with the co-founder, or not the founder, and the CEO of Nestpick, Omer Kucukdere. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jasper. Thanks a lot for inviting me over.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk about this. We all know that there's a lot of people that are very flexible right now when it comes to working and traveling. So I think, booking apartments for 1, 2, or 3 months is there's no real market leader, or there's no Airbnb really for 1 to 3 months stay. Well, I guess Nestpick, is a platform for that. But yeah, I'm excited to dive into this. Would you explain what is Nestpick exactly?
All right. So yeah, it's a great question. I think like the Airbnb of monthly stays is now still Airbnb because they're doing so many booking nights on monthly stays, but a dedicated platform that hears the tenants and landlords and tries to offer them the best quality and affordable inventory. I think that's still kind of in progress. And what Nestpick does, Nestpick is what I call a global platform for on-demand housing. Because I think this type of stays, like more than 30 nights, less than a year, is kind of for Airbnb hosts. It's considered a midterm rental or long-term stays in Airbnb's own words. If you talk to the long-term rental platforms like Zillow.com or Trulia, or Zumper, they consider this the short-term stay. For me, it's more like flexible leases, on-demand housing, and like you said, with remote work going mainstream, I think now having month-to-month rentals of turnkey apartments is becoming relevant for most of the people. And Nestpick has been focusing on this vertical and this vertical only since its inception in 2016. So like you being a digital nomad before it was cool, Nestpick has been a platform, a global platform for monthly stays before it was cool. And with the pandemic, I think now we're trying to tap into this vertical because I think Nestpick is the only truly global platform aside from Airbnb focusing on monthly stays and specifically targeting monthly stays.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised. I'm in Panama City right now, in Panama, and I checked out the website to see if there was any apartments here, and I was kind of not expecting that you would have any listings here because it's kind of off the beaten track, right? But I was surprised to see that there's 50 apartments listed in Panama City. One of them, literally, I can see it from here, from my balcony. So it sounds like you guys have quite a bit of supply online.
Yep. Yeah. Currently, we have just as an example, like I think when I say truly global, it's worth noting that in the past couple of months we got paid bookings from Tokyo to Korea to Bangkok to anywhere in Europe and anywhere in the US. And currently we are connected to more than 250 suppliers and supply platforms and have 2.75 million monthly stays in our database, which is part of a brand plan of Nestpick, which is being the everything store for monthly rentals. Like Amazon started as being the everything store for books. We want to be the everything store for monthly stays. And we initially started in Europe, then expanded in the United States. I spent a couple of years in Berlin, which we still have our larger offices in. But now I'm based in New York for more than 2 years after the acquisition of Sublet, which also serves to individual landlords and has, I think Sublet.com has been operating since 1999. And just in the past 10 years, 675,000 hosts hosted 1.5 million monthly rentals on the platform. So we have both Nestpick and Sublet mostly to serve individual hosts, and Nestpick to connect directly with professionally managed inventory and other platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, the midterm stays. I like to call it midterm stays. And I know you're right there. It's a matter of perspective, but I'm talking about like the 1, 2, and 3 months, or maybe even like, 6 months. But what I experienced when I was traveling around the world with my suitcase, which I did for 8 years, I started in 2010. That was before Airbnb was even known, right? So I would fly to a city, and I would want to rent a place for like 2 months or 3 months, and it was always really hard to find something because back then you had to go on the local sites, and you might not speak the language, and you always get ripped off when you're a foreigner, right? So that's always been a challenge for me, and eventually I started booking Airbnbs for like 1 or 2 or 3 months. But I always felt like it was too expensive, to use Airbnb, because hosts, obviously they're used to making a certain amount of money when they're renting out like 2 or 3, 4 days. That yes, I was able to find listings that I could rent for a month, but the price was always quite high. Plus the fees really add up when you start doing those long-term bookings on Airbnb.
Yep, exactly. So actually, that's part of the reason that I built, that we have doubled down on this vertical, because I am an international guy myself. I lived in 3 different countries and 6 different cities so far. And like you said, every time I move to a new country or a new location, the biggest hassle is to find your first accommodation. Because let's say if you are about to move to UK, the largest classified real estate website there is Zoopla and Rightmove, but most of the landlords there are asking for your local credit score. And as you're just moving into the country, you don't even have a local credit score. Same happened to me when I first moved to San Francisco and New York. Until you get your social security number, build up your own credit line, you need a lending home. And I think that when we looked into that market, you would see that, just like you said, most of Airbnb hosts back in the day were not used to putting in monthly discounts or monthly prices, and those daily rates became too expensive. Booking.com didn't even allow people to search for more than 30 nights at a time. And I think you ended up going to Craigslist and a few of other platforms that is pure CTC, where they don't filter out the quality of the inventory, and also you may risk some unwanted consequences. Or in sometimes you're not physically there. Let's say you're in Panama and you want to move to New York City. It's so, I think, cumbersome to come to New York just to search for a couple of houses and do some viewings and then go back and pack up your stuff. I think that was just kind of the pain point that we have seen. And initially we targeted expatriates, corporate travelers, international students, and kind of digital nomads to help them find an appropriate housing. Because we realize that every market has their own real estate platform or rentals platform, but for none of the largest markets have a dedicated platform for monthly stays, let alone having a single one that operates globally. So that was our ambition. And luckily, unluckily, the international travel was halted during COVID. So we lost a lot of business momentum. But then working from anywhere, working remotely became a huge tailwind behind flexible living and digital nomadism. And now we are sitting on top of that platform. And to be honest, we want to deliver value with considering monthly stays in mind. And thanks to that, we have lower fees both for the hosts and for the tenants when you book a listing from our platform. So there are currently, as of today, there are more than 50,000 listings that are available on vacation rental platforms such as like Airbnb, Booking, Vrbo, and Nestpick. And for a digital nomad, when they rent one of those, and they are also listed on Nestpick, and a digital nomad, if they book the same listing on us, they will have significantly cheaper rates than booking on those platforms because our significantly lower service fees for the tenant, which is in Airbnb 12.6% for short-term stays, but it's also the same rates for monthly stays. And on the host end, for professional hosts, I think Booking.com, Vrbo, and a few other platforms, they're charging mostly around 13 to sometimes 15% commission rates per booking, and Nestpick only charges half of that, 7% to the host.
Yeah.
Thanks to our larger basket rates, we can afford cheaper commissions and cheaper fees, both for the tenants and the landlords. And that's what we're trying to offer to both sides of the market. So it's also a way for hosts to give more discounts to monthly stays users, just specifically on Nestpick.
Mm-hmm. So I imagine you guys probably see more business right now than pre-COVID, correct?
Yes, that's right. We had a remarkable year this year, starting from April onwards, when the vaccination campaigns were like kind of widely available in the Western world. And next year we expect it to be much larger, because yesterday, for instance, US opened up its borders to international travelers, international vaccinated travelers, and Southeast Asia is still under border restrictions. Likewise, Australia and a few other countries. So we expect after this winter, next year to have more international travel coming in on top of our existing fast growth business.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's two reasons why I see a lot of opportunity for for monthly stays. Is number one is the larger cities are getting more and more regulated, right? So for a lot of people in cities like Los Angeles, New York, like renting out for less than a month is just not an option. It's not possible. And then number two, as you mentioned, the remote working digital nomad crowd is just exploding, right? The amount of people that can now work remotely. I was reading an article by Brian Chesky, like an interview with Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, and he mentioned that there's several large companies. I think he mentioned Amazon and Ford, who are going to allow the majority of their employees to keep working remotely. Right, so that's like millions and millions of people, I think, in the U.S. who now have the ability to, instead of just living in one place, they can just kind of leap around, right? 2 months here, 2 months there, which is a really interesting lifestyle that hasn't really been possible for a lot of people until now.
Yes, exactly. I think like what I would like to add there is just like Reed Hastings of Netflix. He says that the innovation first happens gradually and then suddenly. So I think digital nomadism or flexible living, living in a few cities throughout the year was already a trend that was happening gradually. You were one of those prominent members of that crowd, and it was already thanks to, I think, technical work, knowledge work. You just need your laptop and you need to be connected to the internet to be productive and to add value. That was already happening gradually. But I think what happened suddenly was with COVID, most of the workforce had to be first had to be working remotely, and then decides to stay remote for the rest of their course. Just like, and Reed Hastings' gradual to suddenly example was people were running on horseback for 3,000 years until the cars, trains have been invented. So I think this is kind of that moment in time where most of the companies will realize that for knowledge workers working remotely can deliver the same productivity, if not more. And as long as Amazon, Facebook, Stripe, Coinbase, all these tech giants with well-paid job openings offer this, I think the traditional laggers will also need to offer this as a perk. And I think the knowledge workforce, which is kind of the driving force behind travel, international travel, lodging, and accommodation industry, will be the ones that benefit the most on the remote work tailwinds. And I think that tailwind will change not only travel, but also the real estate and residential real estate in urban areas. Like you said, previously it was regulating short-term rentals in New York, in Berlin, in London, in San Francisco. But now with pandemic, some of these cities also lost a lot of population. Like in San Francisco, there were lots of engineers working in the city. Now they're moving elsewhere. So those real estate owners, those developers would also realize this monthly stays, flexible rentals as a business line, as a different service offering for people maybe not necessarily want to live in San Francisco for the full year, but a couple of months at a time throughout the year. And this line definitely provides better yield than unfurnished long-term leases, and has definitely less operational costs than managing check-ins and check-outs every other day, or trying to manage your utilization and play with your average daily rates on the whole year. So I expect both from the demand side and the supply side, there is merit in doing monthly stays. And as Nestpick, we would like to offer both sides of the market, honest pricing, cheaper pricing, more affordable options to post their listings on a monthly basis.
So let's talk about the case for, let's say, an individual Airbnb host is listening to this podcast and is thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, midterm stays. How do I get involved? Like, how does it work? Like, if somebody wants to create a listing, is the process very similar to creating a listing on Airbnb?
Kind of. So we have two website domains. One of them is nestpick.com. And on the header on the right side, there is a link called list your property. So anyone can click to that link, follow on the steps, and make their listings available on our platform. Same applies for sublet.com. We advise the individual landlords to go directly to sublet.com, and the hosts that manage more than, let's say, 10 units to go directly to Nestpick, because Nestpick primarily works with hosts that are managing a handful of listings, and Sublet primarily works with individual hosts. And both of these platforms are interconnected. So whenever you post your listing on Sublet, just like you saw in Panama City, it's automatically also listed on Nestpick, as we own both these platforms. And if you have your, if the host is using a channel manager or a property management software, or have their iCalendar informations, they can load their information sources to one of these platforms where we pull their information on an automatic basis. So in most of the cases, the host doesn't even need to do manual uploads if they are using one of the API services or property management or channel manager services that Nestpick is already connected.
Got it. Okay, so that way we can prevent double bookings, right?
Yes, and basically it's easy to set up, cheaper, just specifically for monthly stays. So we are not in a position to compete with Airbnb or Booking or Vrbo on like less than a month or vacation rentals. But we are the second largest demand platform after Airbnb for monthly stays. and we are operating globally.
So I'm looking at your website, and I noticed I can list on Airbnb, and then automatically also be visible on Nestpick. Is that correct?
Currently not Airbnb, because Airbnb used to post their listings on Nestpick, and we delivered more than 50,000 book nights per month to them. Currently, Vrbo and Booking.com, like if you post your listing on Vrbo, your listing would be automatically visible on Nestpick. And Airbnb is on pause now because of their own managerial policy decisions. I think there's a chance that they could be back throughout next year, but I think the easiest way now is to post directly on us so that you don't have to pay the hefty service fees for a monthly stays that is delivered from our platform.
Got it. And what are some of the PMSs that Nestpick integrates with?
Currently, Nestpick is connected to more than 200 sources. So I think we are already connected to the most major PMSs, and we'll be happy to serve anyone. So I don't want to limit anyone that listen to your podcast and prevent them from reaching to us. Technical things, building products, API relationships, channel management, and property management software integrations is our job, and managing those listings, delivering the highest quality of stay for monthly rentals, and offering an affordable pricing is their job. So they can just reach out to us. We can post them up with least hassle possible, and because we already have fully customized integrations with different sources, and in some cases we even go above and beyond and pull the listings and availability data from spreadsheets of the property managers. So
okay.
that's kind of like something that we're proud of. We will focus on delivering the best online experience for them, and we just want them to deliver a superior experience for the tenants and focus on delivering that experience, offline experience. And I think that's like anyone can reach out to us. They can send an email to info@nestpick.com. They can go to our website, click on list your property, and fill in the relevant steps. Someone from my team will be in touch in less than 48 hours, and hopefully we'll set them up in just 2 weeks to be listed online and get online.
So now to the $1 million question. If we list on Nestpick, are we actually going to receive bookings?
That's a great question. I actually have some benchmarks for that, because I think I don't know if I should name this, but like basically in August and September we had more than $10 million in gross bookings value in a single month, and we have generated more than 2,000 paid monthly bookings to our providers. And back in the day, I think when Airbnb listings were active, Airbnb was getting more than 100 paid bookings per day with an average of 29, 28 book nights per night. So we cannot promise a scale of demand such as Airbnb, but we can promise that we will deliver paid bookings, and it will be significantly cheaper than other large vacation rental platforms.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. Last question. I know there's some other platforms like Furnished Finders, and there's a few other ones I can't remember. What is and I know a lot of people who have tried to list on those platforms, and the challenge that people were always running into is that they would maybe receive a booking here and there, but it wasn't enough to to fully occupy their units for the entire year. So my question to you is, do you see a lot of people that are using your platform in addition to using Airbnb for short term, or booking.com or VRBO? Or are there a lot of people that use your platform who only use your platform?
All right, this is a great question. To be honest, we actually prefer people that use multiple platforms for multiple different purposes, because we don't deliver a few days book nights, and maybe for a host in Barcelona doing daily stays during summer season, they'll deliver the most profits and most revenues. And probably the best platforms to do that is Airbnb, Vrbo, and booking.com. And maybe after November, towards the winter time, maybe the number of tourists visiting Barcelona for a couple of nights decrease significantly, and using Nestpick, offering monthly discounts, paying less service fee to Nestpick to get bookings and increase the utilization during low season could be a better option. I think an internal research in Airbnb showed, this is, I'm not really sure if this is confidential, but one Airbnb representative back in the day told me that one of their internal researchers showed that the highest ROI or highest revenue generating hosts did both daily stays and monthly stays. And that was kind of the sweet formula to generate the most gross bookings value throughout the year. And I would probably advise current hosts and the listeners of your podcast to continue doing what they're doing. But when they feel like the utilization levels are getting low, or when they feel like they want to focus on a few month stays, or when they reach their like local regulations boundaries, use Nestpick to fill up that inventory. Or even if they're managing, let's say, 20, 30 plus units, probably the wise decision is to do a few of them on monthly stays and a bunch of them on daily stays, to basically hedge the risk of a potential new lockdown or border restriction, or and a change in or fluctuation in demand. Because usually the average stay of Nestpick users are around 2.5 to 3 months. So it can provide longer term stays and a more stable income for those managing and more than 10 listings.
Yeah, I think the suggestion for people who are in seasonal markets is a really good one, because that's always a challenge when you're in a seasonal market where the summers you're making a ton of money, and then the winters is really, really hard. And then the option is like, okay, are we going to drop our prices so low, but then we're going to attract a different guest? So I think that model is that's a good option. Just doing short term for the high season, and then long term for the low season. So that's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Omer, for coming on the show. Let's tell the listeners one more time where they can go if they're interested in listing on the platform.
They can send an email to info@nestpick.com. They can go to our website, nestpick.com, and see on the top right corner a link to list your property, and fill in the relevant steps, and we'll be getting in touch with them and making their listings activated as soon as possible.
Awesome. So that's nestpick.com. So it's nestpick.com. Awesome. Omer, thank you so much. And to the listeners, thank you for listening. And we'll be back on Friday. We'll see you then.